Welcome to the Artist Advisory Hotline, the podcast for artists who want valuable guidance and honest answers on how to grow their careers and develop their new project from leading art world experts and artists. Here's your host and founder of the Artist Advisory, Marina Granger. Tune in as she gets you the answers you deserve.
Hello, artists. I'm your host, Marina Granger, and I am so glad to be back. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have such an amazing episode for you and so many more great interviews coming up. And I gotta tell you, I have such a tight schedule of releasing all these interviews because I kept recording interviews, but was scared to record the intros like this one because of this one really terrible thing that I'm sure you might be familiar with called perfectionism. Yeah. So I have literally been stalling recording the intros because I'm oh, well, there's too much sound outside, or my voice is weird today, or whatever excuse I could come up with, it was there. So I wanted to share just 3 points about perfectionism with you that pushed me over the edge to just do it, right? Just freaking do it. So first and foremost, I mean, this is really for those people who might also feel like they're suffering from perfectionism, or in any point felt like they were, right? So first and foremost, you might feel like you're operating at 40%, or you're whatever thing you're doing doing it only at 40%, but that might be other people's 100%, right? You are your own worst critic. You're judging yourself so hard, and there's no need to do that. Just be gentle with yourself, and half the more, actually, way more than half the battle, and there is no battle, right? But the biggest thing is actually doing it, right? Because those who show up actually do the thing and can, win the award, right? Because if you don't show up, you don't put yourself out there, how will they know? How will they know, right? They'll never know. Yes, I have spent a lot of time on the internet. If you know that real, that real audio. It's how will they know? They'll never know, right? So anyway, so the second thing about perfectionism is that, everything that you're doing is probably, it has some value, right? At least to yourself. And if it has value to yourself, then it has value to others. So why are you waiting to put it out there? You're holding yourself back. You're holding back this value from others. So who are you to do that? And I know that these interviews I have for you have so much value. So I'm just going to put them out there, right? And the third thing is that if you do the thing and it's absolutely perfect the first time you do it, you waited too long to do it. And that is value held back from others. That is so much judgment on yourself that you don't, we don't need that, right? You don't need that judgment. Be gentle with yourself. And I got to tell you that what really inspired me to put this into the intro today, aside from my own experience that I'm sharing with you, is one of today's guests went on her Instagram and she shared this amazing thing that she's doing. And it was a solo trip that she took. I think she went surfing for the first time ever. And she said, you know what? I am done waiting to feel ready to actually live life. I'm just going to do it. And it was amazing. So, Kat, shout out to you and thank you for the reminder. Let's be done waiting to feel ready, right? Let's just do it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect the first time you do it. As a matter of fact, if it is, then that sucks, right? Because you could have done it earlier. All right. So before I introduce our guests formally today, I do have to say, thank you, a big thank you to all the artists who applied to the Keysmith Gallery open call. It was like the first ever open call that this gallery did. Galleries like Keysmith never do an open call, but they wanted to give opportunity to artists to get their work out there. And part of that opportunity was also facilitating a meet and greet between the jurors, like myself and my fellow jurors, Akeem Duncan and Mariana Calliner, and the curator for the forthcoming exhibition, Natasha Roberts, inside Keysmith Gallery on June 7th. So to everyone who was able to make it, it was like really weird weather that day. We had orange skies here in New York. So thank you all so much for coming. It was such a pleasure to meet you all. And if you're not sure like who Keith Smith is, he's a really cool gallerist on the Lower East Side, and he likes the New York Knicks. And I think that's really important to mention. And he was just on a recent podcast episode, so you can tune in to his episode to get to know him a little bit more. And he was also a guest inside the most recent cohort of the Artist Academy, which is my online group program, in which I've now taught hundreds of artists on how to really hone in on their authenticity, on their message, how to fine tune their presentation so that they can get in front of the right people, who the right people are, and also ultimately creating more opportunities for them to show and sell their work. And so at the end of this program, I always have the artists introduce themselves to a couple of gallerists or curators that I feel are right for that group. So that was so cool to have Key meet all these artists that I was working with. So that was cool. So I got to tell you, if you're interested at all in this program, I will be launching it again really soon. So go ahead and you might as well just sign up for the wait list, because if you sign up for the wait list, you'll be the first to know about any sort of like deals. There's going to be special early enrollment pricing, and you want to get in on that and get very generous to people who sign up early. So go ahead and tap or click the link in the show notes for the Artist Academy to learn more. So before I tell you about our guest today, there's one more thing I have to share with you, and it's a very special message. And, this message is for those of you who might feel like just things aren't working out. Like you're trying to do the thing and it's just like not happening. And anything that you keep doing, it's just like you're hitting your head against the wall, or you're stuck in mud or something like that. Well, here's a very special message that I recently shared with some of my clients on a group call. And here's the thing. The universe is literally our parent, right? It gave birth to us. God, source, spirit, right? Like whoever you feel is guiding us, right? Whoever you feel is our father or mother, like our parent, is guiding us. And the one thing about parents is they usually know more than their kids. And they're like, hey, you should take a nap now before the big play date. Just gather your energy before the big thing. And so similarly, the universe sometimes tells us to take a nap and to just like chill out before we go out and get a really wonderful opportunity. So this is just a message to trust the universe that everything and anything that you can think of, it's happening for you, not to you, right? That's super important. So let me tell you about our guest today. So our guest today are Ekaterina or Kat Popova and Alicia Puig. They're amazing women, and they're here today to tell you about their recently published book, The Creative Business Handbook: Follow Your Passions and Be Your Own Boss. It's a great resource with valuable interviews from amazing creative entrepreneurs. And Kat is an amazing artist and founder of the Create magazine, which I'm sure you guys know. And I was so lucky to have been asked to be the curator of the women's print issue, which is coming out very, very soon for 2023. And she's also the founder. So Kat is also the founder of the Art Queens community, which is a wonderful community of inspiring women artists who I had the pleasure of speaking to last year on the power of presentation. And Alicia Puig is also joining us all the way from Costa Rica. I could not get over that. She is just like living the life that she designed, and it's just amazing to see. She is the curator and owner of PXP Contemporary, which is an online and also a nomadic gallery. They had a wonderful booth recently at the Affordable Art Fair in the fall of 2022. So that was really cool. And she's also the director of business operations at Create magazine. She also happens to be a very talented writer and curator. So without further ado, here we go. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Hello, Kat. Hello, Alicia. How are you today?
Hello. We're so excited.
Yeah, can't wait to dive into our book and everything. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, I am so excited about your book. I'm so happy to have you on. I really value everything you've been bringing into the community, and I just look up to both of you. You're amazing. So
we look up to you.
Yes, agreed.
We'll look side to side.
Yes, we'll just look at each other.
So for our listeners, can you just briefly introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. I can start and then Alicia can continue. So I'm Kat, and I'm an artist, creative entrepreneur, founder of Create magazine and Art Queens. And I'm so grateful for our community and my partnership with Alicia. And yeah, we'll talk about our relationship in a moment, but that's a very short version about who I am.
Yes. And we'll have our listeners would have heard so much more about you already in our intro. So this is great. Thank you. And yes, Alicia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Puig. I am the curator and CEO of PXP Contemporary Online Gallery. I am also the director at Create. I am an arts writer, and I do a lot of independent curating as well. So I just in love and enjoy working with contemporary emerging artists. That is my passion. And I'm so excited to, like I said, talk about our book and all the things today. So I can't wait.
Yeah. And Alicia, you are tuning in from...
I'm tuning in from Costa Rica, San Jose.
Oh my God, so cool. And Kat is tuning in from
Wilmington, Delaware.
This is the power of the internet. And it's so cool. And just before we started, I was just talking to Kat and Alicia, and I'm like, we should have just gone to visit Alicia in Costa Rica to record this podcast.
So much better, so much cooler.
Yes. But anyway, we feel like we're here. So tell us how you met and how you formed your partnership. So I don't know who wants to go first.
I can go first on this one, and then Kat can always add to it. So we met all the way back in college. We went to a small state school called Kutztown University in the middle of Amish country. So yes, we saw horse and buggies going through campus sometimes. It was a commuter school, but luckily the art program was very, very highly regarded. So we did work with amazing professors who were showing in New York and really all around the world. So it was great that we were able to just have that community from the beginning. Now, we were two people and one of a few students that really stood out because any opportunities that were happening, we really jumped on them. So Kat started to learn about curating and gallery directing, working as the director of Eck House, the off-campus gallery. And at the same time, I was working at the on-campus gallery, the Bears Den or Student Union Art Gallery. And so it just kind of naturally made sense that we would connect. And we were not immediately best friends, but like I said, because we were one of the few students that wasn't just like going out on smoke breaks all the time and just like driving back. It was a commuter school. So a lot of people didn't even stay on campus the whole week. So it just made sense that we connected, and we were commiserating of like, oh my gosh, we're both running these galleries and we're, 19, 20, 21 years old. So we figured a lot of things out together, and that was the beginning of our friendship. And so Kat graduated a full year before I did. She moved to the Delaware area, and that's actually where my parents are based. So when she lived there and I eventually moved to Philadelphia, we were still very nearby. We were less than an hour away from each other. So it was about 10 years of us growing in our careers, growing in the industry together, but really during that time continuing to commiserate because it was difficult. It was hard to figure out, how do we actually make money doing this work in this industry that we love. And I think some people might see us now and think like, oh, but how do you work together with a friend? How do you build businesses? How do you write together? But we built our friendship first over 10 years before we ever worked together professionally. And it's not like we jumped into launching a business together at that point either. She hired me on first to start working for Create. I was a writer, just a writer first. It wasn't until like a year later that I came on as the director. And then it wasn't until a year after that we started PXP together and did the book and next book and all of that. So it's all been a process, and we can talk about that, but I'll let Kat jump on if she wants to talk more about our meeting and maybe the divine timing of that.
That was it was divine timing. And that was like a really cool, I'm imagining in a documentary that would be like little reels of us in college being completely like nerds because no one else wanted to do these jobs. And I was laughing. I had to mute myself because I just realized that the gallery was called Bears Den. And then ours was Egg House. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was totally normal back then. But like looking back, I'm like, okay, this is like really PA Dutch country, but it worked and it was a great experience. And I agree with everything Alicia shared. And one thing that we did, which planted the seeds for our books, is when Alicia would come visit, we'd go to Harvest, this restaurant nearby. It's like a seasonal restaurant and bar, and we would like have a glass of rosé and we'd talk about all the things we're learning in the art world, and we would say things like this. We'd say like, I wish artists knew that, and we're like, wait, and then we jokingly said we should write a book, and then like a few years later, like, wait, we actually should write a book. And we started with writing blog posts, which then we turned into a book. So it was a journey, but I think it was just our curiosity and our love of working in the art realm that kept us continuing, and it was nice that we did it together.
It sounds so beautiful. I mean, it really sounds like you were really strongly rooted in what you wanted for yourselves and for your life and for your career path. And I mean, I'm just painting this picture for myself of these two trees leaning on each other continuously and growing together into one big powerhouse. And that is what you guys are. So that is amazing.
I love that.
And
that's really cute.
Thank you. I'm wondering, since you've been working together for quite some time, tell me, what is your astrology? Do you get along astrologically?
I never even thought about this. Oh my God, what a great question. So I'm a Sagittarius. I am November 29th. So, Alicia?
I'm a Gemini. I'm really embarrassed. I don't know really all of my, the rising and all of that stuff, but all I know is Gemini.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah, well, that's something else we'll have to report back to you.
Okay,
we're gonna do a match.
Yeah, but we've never been asked that. I've never thought about that. Like,
I'm just so curious
to be good friends.
Well, I'm going to predict something that, it's likely that you might have Gemini somewhere in your chart. that aligns with, and that would align with Alicia. And then Alicia, you might have some Sagittarius in your chart. Maybe that's how you get along, or other compatible signs. So that is really cool. And can I ask you about your human design?
I'm a manifesting generator.
Alicia,
I don't remember the details.
Oh, no.
I forget. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with these. I know I've done it before, but I forget which one I was.
We'll have to report back. Homework assignment.
Well, this is how I get you back on my podcast.
Yeah,
we'll keep our listeners at the edge of their seat waiting to hear about your compatibility astrologically, and also about your human design. But I have to just chime in here and say it's so crazy for our listeners. Just Kat and I, we have so many things in common. And I just have to say it, we're both Sagittarius. We're just a few days apart. We both have palms. We are both from the former Soviet Union. And we both love working with artists in the art world. And I think I can say this for everyone here, like for Alicia, for Kat, we are just like fighting against adversity in the art world when it comes from like, like all that toxic stuff. So that's absolutely great. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for doing the work.
Well, thank you for doing the work. This is why we're aligned. Okay.
It's crazy
or not?
It's true. And what's so funny? I was just on a podcast earlier with Anthony, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce his last name correctly, but I believe you know him as well. But the point is, we were talking about that, and they brought it up like, oh, the art world's not friendly and not inclusive. And I'm like, I even forgot, not that I don't know that, but because our community is so warm and welcoming, like people like you, Marina and Alicia, and our queens, like I like almost forgot about that. And yes, we're doing the work, but it doesn't have to be like this, like, oh, let's go get them. It's like, no, we do the work by just creating these safe spaces, and they're going to consume the rest. They're going to go out there and consume the rest, because people are going to realize like, wait, I don't want to live like this. This is miserable.
Yeah.
That's so true. I love that like phrase of creating safe spaces, because I forget that too sometimes, and not just in the art world. Like when I hear other people like go out, when I go out socially and other people talk about their job and they're like, oh, my coworkers are like this, or like, oh, my boss is like this. And I haven't had a boss, well, technically besides you, for like over 5 years now. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to deal with that. And it's like you said, you almost forget that exists, because we've created this space where there isn't that toxicity, there isn't that negativity, there isn't that overly competitive and just like go all the time. It doesn't have to be a fight. And I think that is what we've also learned. Like, yes, we are fighting, but it doesn't have to be all aggressive. There's a flow to it.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that idea. It can be a safe space. It doesn't have to be a struggle or a fight or anything. And I remember when I was working in galleries for so long, I worked for some amazing people, with some amazing people, then I worked with some not so amazing people too. And I always felt like I was just paddling to keep my head above water. It was just such a weird feeling. And I'm finally, like years later, I'm getting out of that. And I think what you ladies are doing, creating this beautiful space for artists to feel included, to feel safe, and to feel seen and to be seen, is fantastic. So kudos to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me just briefly about your first book.
Yeah, I can start with this one. So our first book was inspired by kind of our own journeys being artists and exhibiting our work, selling our work, learning the ropes of how to get media features, how to get into galleries, deal with art fairs, and all those things. And it's geared towards the emerging contemporary artist, someone who wants to get out there, put themselves out there, both in the gallery world or independently. And that book was self-published, and I believe we launched the revised version, the full version in 2020, right? Was that right?
August 2020, correct.
And tell us, what is the title of the book?
Oh,
The Complete Smartest Guide.
Yay. Yes. And it's available right now. And I think it's amazing. So that is one to look into.
and it's
But
pink.
yes, it's pink. Super important.
Very important.
Yeah.
On brand.
And I just want to chime in and say, like, Kat, you briefly corrected yourself. You were like, I wasn't trying, I was actually doing, right? And there's this, speaking of books, because that's what we're here to talk about today too, is there's a wonderful book from like the 30s called Your Word is Your Wand. And in this book, it kind of like tells you that your mind believes everything that you tell it. It is like super gullible. So when you tell your mind that you're trying to do something, then it creates a pathway to not do it. Right? And Kat, I know you studied, just briefly, I know you studied all of this as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, and clearly I'm still a work in progress, which is fine. I catch myself saying things that I shouldn't be saying out loud. But yeah, so I'm really interested in this as well. And I have to check that book out. I have not read it, but I am a certified master coach through Yes Supply. And basically, I just got really passionate about self-development work, one through some weird experiences, which we'll have to save for another episode. And two, through the ones that worked, like having that support, having someone call you in when you're, being hard on yourself or getting in your own way. Like those things were definitely pivotal in me getting to where I am today. So I do coach artists as well, but not from a perspective like, I think this is like another topic too. There's so much going on right now. But one thing is like, I'm really passionate about getting someone to understand their why, and then also understanding that the information is out there. So that's why we write these books, because it's really not that hard. What's hard is getting your mind and your soul and, your subconscious mind to cooperate with you and actually allow for you to pursue these things like becoming an artist, putting yourself out there, starting a business, because the steps are all there. We can all Google them. And of course, we want to write good books with quality content. But that's the thing, like, it's really not about those steps. It is like we obviously have to take practical action, but so many times we talk ourselves out of it. And you're so right. Our word is our wand. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. And, what's amazing there is that, yes, we have to start with our why. We have to start with our intention before we get anywhere, because our intention is going to be our guiding light. So you just published your own book called The Creative Business Handbook, Follow Your Passions and Be Your Own Boss. And I wanted to ask you what your intention was in starting this book and putting it together. Yeah.
Good question. I can start. So I think it kind of goes actually and builds from our first book. Once we knew and saw that artists in our community were really much more comfortable with embracing a business side of their art practice, then they started to dream bigger. And that's always something that we love to be proponents of and champions of. And we also listen to our community. And so they said, we're dreaming bigger, but we still want some guidance. We still would like practical, actionable steps to take. So we decided that we wanted to then do the same thing, make another book that was their guide, their reference, in order to be able to take that next step of building a creative business that wasn't necessarily just selling their art. Although technically it's still accessible and applicable to being a fine artist, but it's also bigger, and we want you to think bigger. And touching into what Kat just said, it's so important, yes, to have that practical advice, but there is a whole chapter dedicated to the CEO mindset, and it's in the middle of the book, not at the end, because we know that people, one, can get stuck. They have this idea, and then the mindset starts to drag them down, the imposter syndrome, the fear, the anxiety, and then they don't follow through and just hit send, press start, do the thing. And then the other thing is we know that it takes time. So we just saw that again, that example of Kat saying, I was trying. Wait, no, I was doing it already. That's the same thing for entrepreneurs. And it happens to this day. It happens to me as well all of the time. That's completely normal. And so since it takes time to develop that mindset, we wanted you to start now. We wanted you to start before everything is launching and everything is busy and you don't have time and you're doing 20 things at once. So we want to make sure that that's part of your practice. That's part of the foundation of your business. So I think the intention is that we want to give you a balance between concrete steps that you can take and resources and these interviews with practical information. And then also, what does it actually mean to be a CEO? How do you step into that role? How do you start showing up as a CEO? How do you believe that you are and show everyone else that you are too? So I think that is one of the main intentions. And I'm sure Kat can add to this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's really, for me, it was a book I wish I had, because I tend to do things a little bit backwards, and I'll I'll usually kind of jump in and then figure things out. And it would be nice to have some kind of guide to what the hell I was doing, because I really had no idea. And I just kind of pieced it all together, which is fine. It worked out in the end. But it's nice to have the practical manual. And I know I appreciate that about my coaches. And in fact, when I'm having a bad day or I'm having a moment of doubt or confusion, I'll remember what the people who came before me said. Like, those little snippets of information are so helpful for someone who's just starting out. So the intention is to empower people, if they want to build a business, to have the blueprint of the basics, and then they can add their own creativity, their own vision to it, and fill it out with their own secret sauce. But it's helpful to have a guide.
There are so many things that you told me about your intention that are really interesting. Like, for example, the fact that it does take time. And earlier on, Kat, you used the term divine timing. And I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about how it's okay for things to take time and the idea behind divine timing.
Definitely. There's so much. Oh my goodness. There's so many examples. I think the most recent one kind of came full circle, and I'll share this. Just example of divine timing is when I first graduated, one of the first galleries to give me a chance and give me a show was Paradigm Gallery in Philadelphia. And they were similar to us. They're friends. It's Jason and Sarah, and they love the art community. They love artists, and they had a studio/gallery where they made work in the back. And I remember being so grateful and staying in touch with them. And eventually, when I started my magazine, posting their artists, interviewing them and all this stuff. Fast forward 10 years later, we're now partnering with them to have exhibitions in their space. And if those seeds weren't planted 10 years ago, nothing crazy happened back there. It was exciting, but it was like those little moments. And following those moments, not expecting the fireworks right away, but really trusting these relationships, not expecting people to just be like, oh, here's a solo show the first day I met you, right? But honoring true connections and true destiny almost. And then just seeing it unfold years later is so beautiful. And then you're so grateful for your own patience and for, being a genuine person and not just expecting things all the time is so, so important. And I'm so grateful that this happened. And then for us, honestly, there is no other reason for why myself as a Russian immigrant moved to this Amish country. I had no idea why I was there. Honestly, for the longest time, God, I want to be in New York City. Why would a Russian immigrant move to Kutztown, Pennsylvania? And I met the love of my life there. I met my amazing business partner there. How? And I got the art career experience. The universe is so much smarter than us. And we do have to trust these random things that sometimes just don't make any sense. Why am I not in New York City? What the hell is wrong? But now I'm no, this was perfect. This was my path. This was perfect for me. This is how my dreams come true. They're not going to come true like someone else's dream. They're going to come true like mine. And then I can go to New York City and then meet amazing artists there too. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Can I add to that actually quickly? Because it's really funny about this same experience. So this show. So PXP Contemporary was supposed to show in DC in the spring. that ended up getting postponed. And I was just so excited about the chance to show all of my artists in person. So I kept just thinking in the back of my head, I wish I had a summer show. I wish I had something happening in the summer. And I knew that we were going to start working on a partnership with Paradigm, but I had no idea when this would come to fruition, no idea the timeline of anything. And then suddenly Kat just emailed me, we're going to do a show in July. So see, these things that you say to yourself are so important and they can really come through in the best ways possible. And now I cannot wait. This is going to be such a great show, collaboration between Create and PXP.
Yay.
So magic.
Yay, it's going to be so good. Wait, when does the show open? Would you tell us?
The first Friday in July. So I think it's July 7th, 2023 for anyone listening.
Awesome.
Correct.
Yay. Okay, so exciting. Okay, so back to your book. And speaking of this collaboration between PXP and Paradigm, the owners of Paradigm were interviewed in this book as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what's so special about this book, which is what got me so excited, is that it really shows us the value of community and working together towards a bigger goal. In the book, there are many, many interviews. I mean, it's comprised mostly of interviews of amazing, great minds in this creative space, such as the owners of Paradigm, such as, for example, Daniel Krissa, who many of my listeners probably already know. We've even got Sunlight Tax right in there, which also I'm sure many of my listeners know, a tax company that specializes specifically for artists, right? There are so many good interviews. And where did you get the idea to just do the interviews and put them together?
Ooh, I can start with this one. Well, I think we already do this a lot for our platform, for the magazine and the podcast. But I think for this book, because it wasn't, for the art book, we interviewed mostly artists, right? And for this one, we're like, no, like, look at all this creativity within the art world beyond making art. Like Hannah Cole from Sunlight Tax, like whoever thought of making a freaking artist tax company? That's freaking genius. Like what a genius, right? And even like, Chris from Colossal, like just getting behind the scenes of like this huge blog platform that's won awards. And it's just so cool to me. And the book is a great excuse to kind of like get to know someone, or like, Ken from Hashimoto Contemporary, like how does this gallery work? How did he start this like multi-location gallery and became so successful? This is the cool thing about being a writer, whether you have a blog or you're writing books, you get to just ask people whatever you want to know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. It's our secret chance to pick the brains of really incredible entrepreneurs. But I think at the root of it is also we don't pretend like we know everything. So we just want to be very clear that sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes there is gap in our knowledge, and we don't have the full spectrum of experiences of being a creative entrepreneur in the art world. No one person can. So we wanted to make sure that we are providing as much information as possible by diving in and finding as many different people who are doing many different things in the art world as we could.
Yeah, it's just such an inspiring idea too. And it's so fun to go through all of these interviews. Everyone's got their own approach. Everyone has their own experience, and just opening up the door to their little world is opening so many doors for anyone who's reading, I'm sure. So I wanted to ask you one last question about the book. How did you come up with the idea that this book was going to be something that was valuable, not just to all the different types of entrepreneurs that are in the creative space, but specifically also to your community, which has a lot of artists in it? So for the artists listening, why do you think it's super important for them to start to think like a creative entrepreneur?
Ooh, I like this question. I guess I can start. So yes, this book, while it is kind of the next step from the Smartest Guide, it's never too early to start. So I think that would be my one big response for why this book is also good for artists is, yes, you can definitely use some of the advice and tips and resources and interviews and all the things in the book to build your business as an artist. But if you have that creative entrepreneurial spirit in you, or if you're curious, if you've ever heard that little voice that said, maybe I can do this, or if you've seen someone else doing something and said, that's really cool, I wish I could do that too, then I would encourage you to get the book, because it might finally help flip that switch of like, wait, I can do this, and I can start planning, and I can start thinking about it now. So I think that would be my one response is,
I have
do
two
you think you might
responses.
have that spirit?
Yes, I
Go ahead.
totally agree with that too. You can start. And one thing to mirror back what Alicia just shared is, for me as an artist, I had a lot of shame around being an entrepreneur because it just wasn't a label. I didn't hear anyone say, oh, she's a creative entrepreneur. What I heard was, you're into too many things, focus. You're never going to be successful if you start this business. Are you an artist or what? And like, that's the vibe and that negative voice that was always in the back of my head. Until I realized, like, as I started looking at celebrities like Rihanna, who has like perfume and makeup and clothes, and like, why the hell is she allowed to do that? And she's like admired for it. And artists can't have multiple things that they're creating. At the end of the day, it's all creating, right? So when I realized that, I started to see musicians doing it, whether they have merch or they do, speaking, or they write books. Like, why the hell can't artists be entrepreneurs? And that was a big driver for me, my own shame and my own like self-acceptance with this part of me. And then I also, as I started coaching, a lot of my clients were entrepreneurs, but they didn't know it. They were like, I'm an artist, but I'm also an educator. Like, for example, shout out to Victoria. When we worked together, she didn't know she wanted to start this thing. She had a blog already. And I think it was like Insta Art Blog at the time before she started Visionary. And I remember talking with her about it. I'm like, well, you have something, you're already doing it. You can monetize what you're already creating in secret behind, like, a lot of us are afraid. We don't put our face in front of that business. We're just like, oh, but they're good at it. A lot of them are so, so good at it, because entrepreneurship is being creative and being an artist in a way. So it was a strong driver for me for personal reasons, I think, as well.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. What I'm hearing is that, it's never too early to start, like Alicia said, because and this is something that I think James Wedmore said, who's amazing. He said, if it's perfect the first time you do it, you waited too long.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'm hearing is like, hey, if you could see somebody else did it, you can do it too. And that goes into this universal law of oneness that I think that everyone should really see as opening possibilities for others, right? So instead of feeling kind of like maybe resentful or any whatever negative emotions you might feel when you see somebody else succeed, if you can see that they did it, you can do it too.
Absolutely.
And that's super inspiring.
That's one of the things, that a tool that I use if I ever start to feel jealous. I'm not a really jealous person, but we all have those pings where we're like, oh, I wish I had that. I'm like, no, you know what? Like, if she could do it, I can do it. And I can even just message her or get on the phone with her and ask her how the hell she did it. So I think it's
or interview her for your book.
Yeah, or interview her for my book or podcast. That's actually how the podcast started. I invited people who were inspiring me and who I wanted to learn from, and it was a free coaching. It was a free coaching for me. So,
oh my gosh, that's amazing. And the other thing that I'm hearing is that it's so important to diversify. In any other business, we know that there should be multiple pillars in your business, at least like 4 pillars or something like that, right? That keep your business afloat, so that when one of the pillars kind of slows down, you still get recurring income. Right,
yes,
to your
absolutely.
business. And why is it that artists are taught that they have to focus, they can't diversify?
I have no idea.
And
Someone made it up. I don't know.
somebody made it up. I bet it was like a cringy, like jaded person in academia. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, I can picture it.
Yeah.
I can picture it.
So yes, you can diversify, and it's so smart to do so, right? That makes you the smartest.
Yeah.
Um, and I love this idea that you were like, hey, you mentioned Victoria Fry, who is so amazing. She runs the Visionary Art Collective here in New York. And yeah, don't be afraid to just go out there and show what you've got, because you've got so much and you might not even see what you have. Right? Like you might think like, oh, this is something I do very easily, so it's not like a thing, right?
Totally.
But when you do
Yeah.
it so easily, when it comes to you so easily, when you're so aligned, it's because you're functioning in your zone of genius and you're meant to do it. So get out there and do it.
Amen.
So artists, you can go ahead and get more into this book. Where can they find this book?
Anywhere books are sold. That feels good to say.
It really
Barnes
does.
and
Oh my
Noble,
gosh.
Amazon.
Yeah, bookshop if you want to support your local independent bookstores, which we love.
McNally in New York.
Yeah, amazing. So cool. And do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about what you have going on in the future, aside from the very exciting summer show at Paradigm by PXP?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start and then Alicia can fill in whatever I'm missing. So we are always, we're creating opportunities for artists with our magazine, and shout out to Marina, who recently curated an issue that will be coming out soon. And we are also always offering free tips and podcast episodes on our website. Shout out to Alicia for writing some awesome articles and features. Our book is coming out and we're having a launch party for anyone who pre-orders. So if you're listening to this a little early, or even if you buy it, you can still join our launch party. We'll send Marina the link for that. And yeah, we just continue to love supporting artists and encouraging everyone to follow their dreams, follow their passions, and become their own boss.
I can jump in. So, yeah, like Kat said, the biggest thing we're going to be excited about for probably a long time is this book launch. But beyond that, and the show coming up in Philly in July, we are, there's going to be so many more opportunities coming up. So we just highly recommend staying in touch with us online at Create Magazine on Instagram, or our website, createmagazine.com, where we have all of the submissions. And the cool thing is we have a new curator for each issue, so they're completely different. We love having these diverse voices because that means each issue is exciting and unique. And just quickly, PXP, there's some exciting things coming up. We're going to be celebrating our 4th anniversary as of May 15th, like next week. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to do a small curated landscape show. And then the fair that I mentioned that got postponed will be happening in October. So if you are in the DC area in October, come see us.
And is that Super Fine Art Fair?
Correct.
And you also interviewed James, Millie, and Alex Matteau, who are the founders of Super Fine Art Fair in the book. Oh my goodness, full circle. Awesome. That is so cool.
And I forgot one last thing. The other exciting thing about this book is that it will be available on audiobook. So if you like to listen to books, this one is available on audiobook.
Yes, someone will be reading it for us.
I am a listener. I know, I'm just going to briefly say it. In human design, you can actually go and find out what kind of way you digest information the best. And I am one of those people that I have to hear it. And I found that out through this really cool app called My Human Design. It's by Jenna Zoe, or
I keep hearing about this app. I'm going to have to look into it.
You have to get it. It's so good. And then Alicia, you get it, and then we'll figure it out.
I'll let everyone know. I'll have to let everyone know, because now I'm curious too. I'm like, wait, what was I again?
Yeah, it's really helpful. It actually, you know what, for anyone listening who is on the line, it's a tool like anything else, but it actually gave me relief, because for a long time I was so worried about being multi-passionate. And when I learned about being a manifesting generator, I learned that we move through projects quickly and we have many careers and many paths in our life. So just knowing that that's part of how we are, how we're made, it was really liberating. I was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be.
Yay! Yeah. And you are as you are supposed to be, all of you. So thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you so much to both of you for being here with me today. It is a true joy and an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for listening. Support your community by sharing this podcast, leaving a review, and follow the Artist Advisory on Instagram at @the_artist_advisory, and visit us online at www.theartistadvisory.com.